Hi, this is John Goodman. Today we are talking about rights of first refusal and their cousin, rights of first offer. Rights of first refusal, rights of first offer. All right, so let's talk about an example. Let's give some examples, two examples of rights of first refusal. One example might be a tenant who is operating a restaurant. Certainly the restaurant entrepreneur would like to buy the building in which they're operating the restaurant, but generally they're strapped for cash. They don't know if the location is going to work for them, so instead they lease. But because location is so important in retail operations, they also want to have their tentacles in the property, if you will. For whatever reason, an option to purchase doesn't work out. So another way that a tenant can have tentacles in the property is by having a right of first refusal. That's one example. Another example that comes up is in a situation where there is a seller and the seller might own more than one parcel. Let's say the seller owns two parcels. The buyer wants to buy both parcels. The seller does not want to presently sell both parcels. The seller only wants to sell one of the two parcels. The buyer might want to have a contract to buy that one parcel, but after closing on this also might want to have a right of first refusal to purchase the second parcel. So those are rights of first refusal. Rights of first refusal, and let's keep in mind we're talking about these things right now in your capacity as somebody who's a deal maker, as somebody who's engineering the deal, as somebody who's designing the deal. We're not talking about you actually scrivenering up, writing up, drafting up. We are not talking about you drafting rights of first refusal because they're tricky, they're alive for a long time, they create problems. But as the deal maker, as the designer of the transaction, one concept to keep in mind is generally the problems associated with rights of first refusal are problems for the people who are burdened by the right of first refusal. The landlord in my first example, the seller in my second example. They tend not to be problems for the party who is benefited by the right of first refusal. All right, for the party who is burdened by the right of first refusal, it's important to have an understanding of the problems that come with them, and the problems tend to be twofold. One of the problems that comes up with rights of first refusal is properties that are burdened by rights of first refusal are hard to market. Offers come in, they have to be countered with contingencies, making the seller's obligation to sell to the market buyer contingent upon the right of first refusal buyer not exercising their rights under the right of first refusal. Another way that they cause problems for the seller is games are played. So for example, the market buyer who is aware of the right of first refusal and who doesn't want to be bought out by the party who's benefited by the right of first refusal might make kind of a funky offer, like their earnest money, instead of being cash, might be a 1953 MG car or something like that, and trying to make it hard for the right of first refusal buyer to match those terms. If you've thought of those ideas, you're not the first person to think of those ideas. Laws have evolved to deal with that gamesman kind of ship. Too complicated for this webcast, but that kind of gamesmanship is a problem with rights of first refusals. Okay, if they're bad, John, give us an alternative. And the alternative is for the person who seeks a right of first refusal, for that person to have instead what I will call a right of first offer. That is, for a certain finite period of time, 3 years, 5 years, the owner of the property burdened by the right of first offer will give the tenant in my first example, the buyer in my second example, an opportunity to make the first offer on the property. The tentacles that the holder of the right have are not as strong as the rights that they would have under an option. They're not as strong as the rights that they would have under a true right of first refusal. But nevertheless, they are something, and they avoid a lot of the complications, a lot of the burdens for the property owner who is burdened by the rights of first refusal. The summary of this is keep rights of first offer in mind as an alternative to avoid the problems associated with rights of first refusal. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, we live in a complex world. Be careful out there.